welcome back to my table. I'm so glad that you have joined me again. I want to say hello and welcome to our new subscribers. We picked up a few new subscribers last week, and that is so exciting, and welcome. And I hope what you hear on this channel blesses you. Thank you also to those who commented on the video and shared. That is a huge blessing, and I appreciate it so much. I hope that last week's lesson about rejection blessed you. And actually, this morning as I was reading my Bible, I was reminded of another time of rejection. You know, the Hebrews at first did not want Moses to be their leader. They rejected him. But the Bible says that the people rejected him, but God chose him. And so if you feel rejected today, please go back and watch last week's video. God is for you. He chooses you. He will not reject you. So I hope that video was a blessing to you. So today I'm going to attempt to record two videos. This video, A Woman Who Testified, and also next week's video for the Balm of Gilead. My husband and children and I will be doing some traveling next week to Louisiana. If you are at Because of the Times next week and we have not met, please introduce yourself. I would love to meet you. It's always exciting to meet new friends, and hopefully this channel has become a community and like a family, and I would love to meet you. So I'm going to attempt to do two videos today. I had thought about changing my clothes and doing a different hairstyle. But I just don't have the energy for that. So if I am able to record two videos today, that will be a great thing. So I don't have to do it after we get back from a long trip. So let's get started into our lesson today. It is the woman who testified. And this is going to be a familiar story to you about the woman at the well in John chapter 4. And so at the beginning here, I'm just going to recap a little bit. Jesus stopped by a well in Samaria right at the time he knew she would be there. A woman who had been rejected by society. There we go again. But he stopped in Samaria right at the time that he knew that she would be there. You see, she had a sordid history and did not feel very received by the other women in town. So she went at a time of day that wasn't typical to go get water from the well. And there Jesus finds her. And Jesus asked her for water and then offered her living water. And so she was puzzled and said, you asked me for water. You don't even have anything to get the water from the well. You know, how are you gonna give me any water, much less living water? And so we're going to start in John chapter 4, verse 13. And it says, Jesus answered and said to her, whosoever drinks of this water will thirst again. Whoever drinks of this water will thirst again. But whoever drinks of the water that I shall give him will never thirst. But the water that I shall give him will become in him a fountain of water springing up into everlasting life. Now, so Jesus is speaking of the spiritual, but she still has a carnal mindset at this point. So in verse 15, she says, Sir, give me this water, that I may not thirst, nor come here to draw. She's like, this sounds great. You know, this is kind of a pain having to come get water every day. So if you have water that I can drink and never be thirsty again, you know, let's do that. And Jesus said to her, go call your husband and come here. The woman answered and said, I have no husband. Jesus said to her, you have well said, I have no husband. For you have had 5 husbands, and the one you now have is not your husband. In that you spoke truly. The woman said to him, Sir, I perceive that you are a prophet. They proceed to have a conversation about worship and the Messiah. We're going to jump to verse 25. The woman said to him, I know that Messiah is coming, who is called Christ. When he comes, he will tell us all things. Jesus said to her, I who speak to you am he. Jesus tells her, I am the Messiah. In verse 28, we see that she left her water pot and went her way into the city and said to the men, Come and see a man who told me all things that I ever did. Could this be the Christ? So they, the men of the city, went out of the city and came to him. She was shocked that Jesus knew her story. Oh, but can I tell you, my friends, he knows your story. He knows right where you're at. She was so excited that she left her water pots at the well. She was no longer thinking about her own needs of thirst or water to wash with or water to cook with. She left her pots at the well to go tell her testimony of this man who told her everything that about her. Her story was humiliating. That's why she didn't go to the well at the same time as the other ladies. Her story was humiliating. But once Jesus entered the picture, all shame was gone. And we are going to do a video about shame here in the next couple months. But when Jesus entered the picture, she was no longer ashamed. She went to the city. She said, hey, there's a man at the well that I think he might be the Messiah. I think he might be the Christ, because he just told me my whole sordid story. He just told me, yeah, you don't have a husband. You've had 5. He told me everything about myself. See, at this point, because of the revelation that this might be the Messiah, her shame was gone. She went to the city. She didn't even like being around people. She was ashamed of her story. But once Jesus entered the picture, she was no longer ashamed of her story. Can I tell you that once Jesus enters your picture, you will no longer be ashamed of your story, but you will be anxious to tell people about Jesus. I want to stop calling her the woman at the well, and I want to call her the woman who testified. Let's see what happened because she wasn't afraid to tell her testimony. John 4, starting at verse 39 says, and many of the Samaritans of that city believed in him because of the word of the woman who testified, saying, he told me all that I ever did. So when the Samaritans had come to him, they urged him to stay with them, and he stayed there 2 days. And many more believed because of his own word. Then they said to the woman, now we believe, not because of what you said, for ourselves have heard him, and we know that this is indeed the Christ, the Savior of the world. People came to God and got their own revelation of who he is because she was willing to go tell them about Jesus. They said, okay, we believe, not necessarily because what you said, but because we heard him for ourselves. But they would have never heard him for themselves if she had not first been willing to testify. Don't be ashamed of what God has done for you. Don't be ashamed to tell your testimony. We just had this conversation in our adult class at church just a few Sundays ago, and it was so encouraging to me. They were encouraging people to share their testimony, and I already had this lesson written. I was already prepared to teach this lesson, so it was a beautiful confirmation. It is time for the people of God. Oh my goodness, I'm going to get ahead of myself. It is time for the people of God to tell our testimony. I can't tell you what has come from me sharing my testimony. You know, it's produced 2 books, a devotional, What Shall I Fear, and a very short book, Faith Over Fear. Those have come from me being willing to share my testimony and be very transparent and not be afraid of what people may think of me if I show them just the depths of despair that I had been in and how the Lord delivered me. I can't tell you the testimonies that have come. I don't know. I won't know until heaven. But I'm telling you, there is power in sharing your testimony. But I can tell you this, that every time that I have shared what the Lord has done for me, every time that I have shared how the Lord brought me up out of that horrible pit of despair and anxiety, that every time I share that, my heart is filled with gratitude. Someone else is encouraged, and I once again am encouraged. Somebody share your testimony. Now listen, I want to share something so funny with you that I discovered reading further on in John chapter 11. This to me struck me so funny. This is hilarious to me. So in John chapter 11, we read about Lazarus being raised from the dead, and what a testimony that was. Just a tremendous testimony. But let's read what happened a little while after the miracle, or what happened because of Lazarus's miracle. We're going to read in John chapter 12, verse 9. We're going to start in verse 9. Now a great many of the Jews knew that he was there, speaking of Jesus. And they came not for Jesus' sake only, but that they might also see Lazarus, whom he had raised from the dead. But the chief priests plotted to put Lazarus to death also. So they were trying to plot how to kill Jesus, but not only Jesus, they wanted to kill Lazarus. Why would they want to kill Lazarus? Verse 11, because on account of him, many of the Jews went away and believed in Jesus. Many of the Jews believed in Jesus because of the miraculous testimony of Lazarus being raised from the dead. And so that made the chief priests and rulers mad. So they're like, we're not only going to try to kill Jesus, but we're going to try to kill Lazarus. Now, does that strike you funny like it did me? Jesus had raised Lazarus from the dead, so they wanted to kill Lazarus. Honestly, did they not think that if Jesus raised him from the dead once, he could do it again? And look how many more people would believe if Lazarus had been raised from the dead twice. It struck me so funny. Oh my goodness, they wanted to kill Lazarus. Hello. Jesus has resurrection power. He already raised Lazarus from the dead once. If you kill him, he could do it again. How many times are we going to do this, boys? You could keep killing him, and Jesus could keep raising him from the dead. I thought that was so funny, but just stay with me in this line of thinking. What would have happened if they had succeeded and killed Lazarus and Jesus had raised him back the second time, and then a third, and then a fourth? As many times as they were able to kill him, Jesus would have been able to raise him from the dead. Let me tell you, my friends, the enemy does not like your testimony, and he would love nothing more. Woo! I feel the Lord. He would love nothing more than to snuff out your testimony. He would love nothing more than to kill your testimony. Oh, but there is resurrection power. How would this happen? How would the enemy try to kill your testimony? Well, here's a few ways that I thought. Cause you to doubt what really happened. Maybe it wasn't as dramatic as you remember it to be. Maybe Jesus didn't come through as much as you thought he did. Maybe putting doubts in your mind about your testimony. Maybe that's why the enemy would try to kill your testimony. How about the enemy? And I know because I have lived this and I have heard this. Shame on people that say, oh, I've heard that testimony 1,000 times. Oh, really? So you're saying that testimony is old? Let me tell you, your testimony is not old. To everyone who hears it again and again, and to those who hear it for the first time, they are going to be encouraged, and you're going to be encouraged for saying it. Your testimony is not old. Yes, I believe the Lord wants to give us new testimonies, but when you tell someone, oh, let me tell you what happened to me 20 years ago, that is going to encourage them. It's going to encourage you. Your testimony is not old. Don't let the enemy try to kill your testimony. The enemy may try to make you feel intimidated by your testimony. Oh, if you tell those people what you did in your past, oh, they're going to think ill of you. No. They need to know that you are human and that you made mistakes and that the Lord delivered you and that he can deliver him. The enemy could have stopped the testimony at the woman of the well with all of these, but she didn't allow it. Just like the chief priest, the enemy doesn't want others to hear or see your testimony because he knows that people will get their eyes off their situations and on Jesus if they hear a testimony. Revelations 12:11 says, and they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony, and they did not love their lives unto death. Who did they overcome? They overcome Satan. They overcome the enemy of your soul. When you open your mouth and say, this is what the Lord has done for me. If he did it for me, he can do it for you. Your testimony is powerful every time you tell it. It's like Lazarus coming out of that grave again. Your testimony is powerful. Share it. Share it. Share your testimony. And since I want to practice what I preach, today, I want to be the woman who testifies. My name is Tracy Chaco, and the Lord delivered me from a horrible pit of anxiety. Oh my goodness, he delivered me from a horrible, horrible pit of depression. I once was a slave to fear and anxiety, but the Lord has brought me through. Let me tell you that I walked a horrible road of postpartum depression. My miracle son, oh my goodness, those of you that don't know this testimony, my husband and I had less than 5% chance of conceiving, but the Lord miraculously moved in our situation and gave us Jay and Hope, and I was pregnant a third time. But let me tell you, after I had my miracle boy, I struggled with such postpartum depression that even to coo at him, to like smile at him, took every fiber of my being because I was so deep into a postpartum depression. If you are there, let me tell you, the Lord can help you. He wants to give you strength and help. God has delivered me, and he is able to deliver you. Let me tell you that 12 years ago, on that same miracle boy's third birthday, now come on, I almost died on my miracle boy's third birthday, but the Lord did not allow it. I was pregnant a third time and did not know it, and I was having a ruptured tubal. Didn't even know I was expecting again. I just knew I was in severe pain. I didn't know what was happening. So I called the doctor, and oh, the mercy of God. He gave me the right nurse that persuaded the doctor, said, I said, could this be a tubal? And the doctor finally just said, listen, just go to the drugstore and get a test. If it's positive, go to the ER. We are not ER people. So I sat on my couch, not knowing that I was bleeding to death internally. I sat on my couch and waited for my husband to go to the drugstore to get the test. Came home, I took the test, it was positive. Then we know, okay, something very serious is happening. I went to the emergency room. I never even passed out. I started getting tunnel vision. I did not know how much blood I was losing. Long story short, they were about to ship me off to a different hospital. If that would have happened, I probably would have died on the way. But thank God that a nurse came in, looked at me again, went to the doctor and said, I think you need to go see her again before you send her off. I think she needs to have this surgery here. And thank the Lord for that, because I had lost probably 3 liters of blood internally per my surgeon. That's what she told my husband after the surgery. But 4 units of blood later, and a couple of days later, I was home with my 3-year-old son and my 8-month-old daughter, and the Lord rescued my life. Let me tell you of the sure mercies of God. Let me tell you once again, oh my goodness, I could have been gone out of their life. I could have been gone for 12 years. But the Lord rescued my life. It reminded me, Tracy, you have nothing to fear. I hold you in my hand. Let me tell you, the enemy could try to say, oh, Tracy, that testimony's 12 years old. Everybody's heard it. Nobody wants to hear it. And I say, oh, I'm going to tell you once again that the Lord rescued my life. My daughter Hope could could, at this stage in her life, not even know her mama. She was 8 months old. If I would have died that night, she would not have any memory of me, but God. But God. And I will tell this testimony until I take my last breath. God knows where you are. His hand is on you. Oh, let me tell you, he can bring you out of that valley of despair and anxiety. Oh, yes, he can. He did it for me. He can do it for you. What's your testimony? Did he deliver you from drugs? Did he deliver you from pornography? Did he deliver you from being a people pleaser? What is your testimony? I encourage you today. Woo! Share your testimony. It is by these testimonies that we overcome the enemy. We encourage others by our testimony. We, like the lady at the well, get our eyes off of our situations and put people's eyes on Jesus. Share your testimony. It is not old. It is not old. People are not tired of hearing it. It will encourage them and it will encourage you. Be the person that testifies. I love you guys. Oh, share your testimony. Listen, I would love it if you would drop a testimony in the comments. Come on, let's share some testimonies. Would you do that with me? On the comments here on the YouTube channel, I would love for you to share a testimony that the other subscribers can come and read. What is your testimony? Tell us. Don't be ashamed. Oh, no, he has taken away our reproach. He has taken away the shame. Share your testimony. I would love to read your testimonies. You guys have a great week, and I'll see you next week.